Okay. Hi all, welcome to the Keptn community meeting. Today is April 13th. I guess we will have a relatively short meeting today because we don't have many topics. So what we have on our list is basically migrating from 0.13 to 0.14 and potential compatibility issues, then making Helm charts more accessible to end users, and we will use whatever time remaining for GSOC Q&A. So thanks, Brett, for these topics. And yeah, actually, we can start from migrating because this is something many Keptn users hit already. So if you go to 0.14.1 release, you can see that there are multiple break-in changes. And what was actually surprising change is the distributor service, because what we have added upgrade guidelines, etc. But actually, what we experienced before is that if you use old version of the distributor service, or if you do not update, then you have an issue. And many users had regressions when upgrading because NATs changed. So many integration services stopped working properly just because they were unable to connect to Keptn and to communicate to other components. So many instances went sideways. And the problem that you need to update the distributor service, and basically it means that you need to update each integration right now. So at least for me, it was a surprise. So when I was upgrading, I hit this issue. And I guess anyone who uses custom services would also hit it. Brett, what is your experience? Did you also hit it on your side?
Well, yeah, I was the one. I just held back till I came to this meeting and asked because I didn't want to waste time troubleshooting. But if all we have to do is update the distributor container image, the tag, then that's easy.
Yes.
I believe that's all we need to do, right? Yeah.
Yes, this is exactly what you need to do. Or you
that's
can
easy.
apply a workaround by changing global environment variable. What is definitely for our retrospective. So when 0.14.1 was released, even if it was explicitly recommended that NAT's address changed, from user standpoint in upgrade guidelines, etc., it wasn't clear what is the potential fallout for that. And it came as a surprise even on my test instance, which is really primitive. So I think that it's something we need to work better on, basically upgrade guidelines and documentation when we have breaking changes, and actually more tracking for these breaking changes to start with. So when we plan a new release, etc., we should clearly see what are the breaking changes. It was done in this case. The initial draft included 3 changes, but what was missing is analyzing impact on users and on upgrade paths. So this is something we should invest more, maybe add explicit item to the checklist to verify upgrade guidelines, because, well, it happens with any open source project, and we should be just careful about that. And having additional quality gate in terms of our release process would be important, I think. We just adding it for the major releases, but yeah, this Keptn NATs thing, it was a surprising one for many.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes if it's not kept in core, then it's not really. I wouldn't say maintained. It's not updated as much as it probably should be in the major releases. For some of the, I understand that it's the sandbox area and things, but people still use those services.
Well, it's not only the sandbox. There are many integrations in country which are considered production ready, and you would hit exactly the same issue with them. So whether you use Prometheus integration service, Dynatrace integration service, whatever. So basically, even SLI provider services were affected. So basically, it would render many Keptn instances just malfunctional after this upgrade. And it raises a number of questions. So firstly, whether we do upgradeability testing at all, and whether we have test automation for that. Spoiler alert, we don't. And this is something we need to talk to the team. So yesterday I will be meeting with Johannes, and this is one of the topics I actually wanted to bring up, that we should do some kind of upgradability testing, either automated one, if not possible, at least manual ones. Let's say have a number of Keptn instances and verify the upgrade flow there before we roll out the preview release.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too hard to automate. You could even use Keptn to test Keptn.
Yeah, we could. Well, in this case, any basic realistic Keptn instance would have caught it. And this is something that concerns me, because yeah, it's not like we need something sophisticated, just whatever smoke test instance where we do upgrade, stage the new release, see what happens. And yes, for that, we could have put it on a public demo instance, but public demo instance is shut down indefinitely until we have cap 60 ready. So, or until we have another way, but yeah, cap 60, at least for me, is a table stake. So without permission model, we can post public Keptn instance right now. And if we cannot have that, then we should have at least internal Keptn instance, maybe private Keptn on Keptn, etc., where maintainers and key contributors have access to, and where we can at least verify key functionality. So, is there anything else we need to discuss on this topic?
No, all good from mine. I was just going to quickly mention as well, do we have any new members that need to introduce themselves on this call?
So Eric has already introduced himself. I'm not sure about Jainam, but if you want, you can go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hey everyone, I am Jainam Shah. Yeah, I mean, I am also looking into participating in GSOC this year. So, yeah, I mean, I piqued an interest in this K6 integration project, but I have some doubts regarding the scope of that project and how we are, I mean, how we are going to go ahead with that. I mean, so I saw a post on K6 community where Adam probably mentioned that we can do this using the job operator service. So, are we planning to write a new service for this or using that?
Yeah, and here I would say you tell us, because the implementation really depends on the use cases you want to address. Because if you talk about the really simple service, of course, job executor service would be fine. You just put it CLI there, trigger it, and something happens. Whether it's enough for use cases we want to address, this is something that needs to be discussed with the community, and actually application phase is a good time to discuss it. So prepare with potential users, maybe with users of Gmeter integration service, because we already have Gmeter, which is, well, K6 integration service could be basically the same. The question is whether you need it, and actually discussing it with the user community is something I would recommend.
Oh, okay.
because in this case, implementation should be really driven by the use cases.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I will take a deeper look into that and decide.
Yeah. Have you already tried the Gmeter integration service?
No, not yet. I haven't tried it yet, but yeah, I will try it.
Yeah, maybe it's something I would recommend because there are tutorials that demonstrate how to use it. And if you just go through these materials, maybe you can get some perception how it could operate for key 6.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I will go through the tutorials. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, and thanks for your interest. Any other introductions before we move on? I guess everyone else has already been on the call. And let's move on. So making Helm charts more accessible. So Brett, would you like to summarize this piece?
Yeah. So
No worries.
when I went, normally I get Artifact Hub, my Helm charts from Artifact Hub, and I can, when I use Argo CD to deploy them, I want to reference the URL and the chart version, whereas only the core Helm charts of Keptn are available. Even if it's like a GitHub Pages branch, where the Helm indexer generates the manifest index.yaml file would be sufficient. But a lot of the, like Argo service, for example, I wanted to deploy that with my Keptn instance today, but then I found out that I actually had to fork it or clone it and then go into the Helm chart and then run Helm install. So I feel like it's very minimal effort to just have a GitHub action that will run the Helm indexer, it will upload it, and then it can publish it to Artifact Hub as well for the services deemed, production ready.
For
Would be
Artifact
nicer.
Hub or to charts Keptn SH?
Just a mechanism to be able to specify the Helm chart URL. So, if I want to do Helm repo add, for example. So it doesn't necessarily have to be Artifact Hub. That's my preference, and I would guess that a lot of other people use Artifact Hub too. But it could be as simple as just having a GitHub Pages branch, and then the release would be done for that Helm chart on the GitHub releases, and then the GitHub Pages reference that file. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, though we might have to have a two-stage deployment. Because one of the problems with the current implementation is that you cannot just grant permissions for Artifact Hub to any service, because we have exactly zero way to have different credentials to the system or to somehow protect it. So how I would see that there would be two-stage deployment. So firstly, for example, GitHub Action or whatever uses GitHub packages to prepare Helm chart, or again GitHub Pages, but in local repository with local GitHub tokens. And then we have another Grabber instance that actually has some metadata, basically just whatever instance that would take all these deployments and deploy to Artifact Hub. So it could be a separate GitHub action or whatever other automation solution, but it could be a separate pipeline.
Yeah, because with Artifact Hub, you don't necessarily need to. All you need to do is do it once, and then you point it to that repo, and then it will every hour it will poll the repo and grab the latest metadata. But anyway, like even if it was in the Git repo itself, I wouldn't care. Like it's just something better than having to, I don't think it's acceptable to have to clone the repo, get the folder in the chart. You know, a lot of people want to use GitOps, and they just want it's just easier. Like I don't want to have to waste my time doing all that. Otherwise, I can just fork it and just do it myself.
Yeah, that's
But
totally legit.
it could be a good, yeah. But it could be a good little project for a student or learner, or
Yeah, so it seems to be quite straightforward. Yeah, we already have a lot of Artifact Hub automation in the Artifact Hub repository. So basically, we generate the entire Artifact Hub based on the metadata. So one of the ways would be to just, when we run the scripts, just to check help charts in known places, and then deploy them within the same script, which already has all the permissions and access to Artifact Hub API. So I think it would be totally legit. It's definitely a nice, let's say, hackathon project. I think it would be done in one day with proper focus.
Yeah, definitely. Because at the moment we only have the Keptn core, JMeter, and Helm service that are yeah.
And also we still have services that don't have Helm charts at all.
Exactly. I seen one of them.
A lot of them.
It gives you like kubectl apply. Yeah.
So I think that for any graduated integration, we should set expectation that we have a Helm chart going forward. Because for me, it seems to be a good condition for graduation.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
But yeah, basically, it would be a nice project. I'm not sure whether any of potential mentees would be interested in hacking a bit. Actually, it's a good question how we organize these projects, because we used to do, let's say, online hackathons / hacker gardens in Jenkins. So basically, when we team up together and do a kind of work and learn project, at the same time, with time zones, etc., it has been always complicated to organize. But maybe we could try doing something like that in Keptn too. And speaking of that, we have a bug bash starting in the beginning of May. So we've been accepted to KubeCon bug bash. It's from May 2nd to May 13th. So they will be looking actually for a lot of good first issues. So if we could at least separate something. So for example, create a standard flow for, let's say, Helm chart in a service. So I guess many services could get a Helm chart in a quite straightforward way. So you just package the things. So if you could document this flow, how you create a Helm chart of that, we could also put these tasks as a kind of good first issues.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can do that.
So yeah, if you would like to write up a small developer guide for that, basically convert a service to Helm chart, it would be great.
I did a blog on it. That's half of it, but I'll just have to do the Helm chart. But I can write it for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
We're working on the Auxilia service and the test cube service at the moment as well, so we can use that as a prototype and then present it back and see what folks think about it.
And once it's done, I can take care of all the issues, etc. And maybe if we have enough tasks and capacity, we could really try doing small hacker garden events on whatever Friday. So just to work together on it.
Yep. It's a great first issue.
Mm-hmm. Even a standalone guide would be perfectly fine. Then we can figure out how to integrate it into existing documentation materials. Because yeah, Mac is currently working on restructuring all of them. So maybe we could integrate them later in wider guidelines.
Yeah. I was being nice, keeping my mouth shut, but if you want to work on it together, Brad, just ping me. Love to work with you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. With the documentation, is that the Hugo site that you run, or it's something
Yes.
else?
Currently, yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We're
I've
hoping
actually
for new
wrote some
tools in the near
documentation
future,
before.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
basically,
I've done some
whatever,
documentation in it before. Okay.
yeah. So even whatever Google
And,
Doc, etc. So whatever format is convenient for you, it would be great start, and later we can convert it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, don't worry about if you don't want to screw around with Hugo and all that. I'm happy to do that part of it. But
Okay.
because
Cool.
then, okay, well, what I'm wondering too is, I'm still new here. When I read what they said, what the documentation is about the breaking changes, I still didn't quite understand how breaking they were until something else. I mean, is what the documentation we're proving now adequate? Is just a question.
I think, like, based on my feedback for the first item about that, it was a big break and change, but maybe it could have been maybe portrayed more that it's sort of minimal effort to actually fix it, because all you really had to do is upgrade the distributor container,
Right.
and that probably it's just what your service talks to. So I don't really see a problem with upgrading that being an issue. So maybe just saying, like, this is all you need to do. So maybe a guide on how you do that might have been just a little bit like, oh, it's broken, it's not compatible, full stop. Whereas just a little bit more detail when it would have been nicer, I think.
Yeah.
For this particular change, I would argue that Keptn upgrade could have been also updated, because this is a change that can be done automatically, or at least in a guided way. So because when you prepare to the upgrade, you could get all the information what you need to do. Because even if you put it in the documentation, half of the people won't read it. So maybe just having it as a part of tooling
Right. You
would be
look at the
nice. But
documentation after something breaks. Yeah, it would be lovely if it just worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Some people don't read the documentation as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, I also read the documentation only after I hit issues with upgrade. I just browsed through Git changelog. None of that seemed to be particularly concerning for my case, but well, finally it did. It's just a matter that some documentation should be detailed enough so that it catches eye for user, and some could be automated so that you cannot make a mistake.
Right.
Okay. So anything else we would like to discuss for Helm charts? So I guess we have a plan. So Brett, if you could create a short guide, I can take care of GitHub issues, etc. And Mac could help with the reviews for everything, so that we roll out the thing.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Oh, and yeah, thanks a lot for the link. I just noticed that. Okay. So then we can just move to other topic, which is just whatever questions about the Google Summer of Code. From mentors, from students, from anyone.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
I just had a couple quick questions actually with regards to Summer of Code. I guess the first one has to do with, like, I noticed on the timeline there's sort of I guess like an initial deadline of mid-September, and then an extended deadline that goes to like the end of November. So I was wondering like if that is something that we can kind of take into account in our proposal. Like specifically that period between like the end of September, or I guess like middle of September to the end of November, or if that should just purely be seen as like a buffer in case not everything gets done. I don't know if you guys caught my question there.
Brett, you're muted. And yeah, sorry, I definitely didn't get the question.
Oh yeah. So Eric, if what I think you're saying is that if you have a deadline to finish the project and you don't quite meet the deadline within the time between end of September to November.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm specifically asking with regards to like on the, I guess the program website. I think it's like developers.google.com. There's a timeline where the project ends sort of mid-September, and then there's like an extended deadline where it goes sort of to the end of November. So I was wondering if that period between the middle of September to the end of November should like be purely seen as a buffer in case things don't get finished, or if we can kind of like use that in our planning as well, like in the proposal, for example.
So basically, when you make a proposal, you define what would be the timeline. And
Okay.
my recommendation that if you want to target this additional time to have, let's say, less relaxed time during the implementation, sorry, more relaxed time during the summer because of other activities, or if you just want to do more, then it's something you need to discuss with mentors. So it's not a buffer time where if something goes wrong, you can extend. Well, it can be done in edge cases, but ultimately, for the most of the projects, you should plan it beforehand. So if you want to have longer time, it is better to discuss with potential mentors to include it into your proposal draft so that everyone is on the same page.
Okay, that sounds good. So as long as it's sort of like clear what the timeline is, we can use the full, I guess like even to the end of November is sort of what I'm getting.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, nice. Perfect. Yeah, so actually I did have one other question as well. And this is kind of more specific to the GitOps project, which is kind of what I'm interested in. Like I noticed that, so like Thomas has obviously done a lot of work on this already, where there's like a fully working POC. So like it's not like something I'd necessarily be building from scratch if I were to contribute. Like if I were to, I guess, like suggest enhancements as part of my proposal, like I was wondering if there was, because I'm looking at, I think it's Keptn 67 and 69 are the proposals that are currently already present. And then there's like issues on the repo itself. Like I was wondering if I'm missing anything in terms of like what's already planned for, other than what I just mentioned, in case like I don't want to like suggest something that's already being worked on by someone else or by Thomas.
Yeah. So this is why it's
already
important
considered.
to discuss it earlier, because GitOps integration service is a moving target. So what you can do, that basically you can refer to the current prototype, etc., to what we currently have. There is also some kind of roadmap defined in the CAP, etc. So basically, looking at this information, you can take a slice of work you would like to focus on, and then discuss it, let's say, in the Slack chat. So basically, once you have an idea what you would like to work on as a part of this project, it's definitely something you could discuss. So that firstly, Thomas, me, and other potential mentors know what you want to work on. So we can see how we isolate this work so that it can become a GSOC project set according to the requirements. And we can also see how to actually adjust. So, for example, what better not to touch because somebody is planning to work on that already, or maybe other topics. So in this case, it's important to have a discussion in the community so that basically you coordinate your work with whatever happens. And we still have a few weeks to do that before the application deadline.
Awesome. So I guess in terms of like what's happening right now with GitOps, is it mostly Thomas that I should be talking to? And is there
yeah, Thomas is basically
kind of
a
other
champion
people
for
who are-
this project. So he's doing the most of architecture work, the most of the coordination. So Thomas would be definitely the key source of information for whatever happens in this project. Other mentors, including me,
Okay.
we are really interested to see it happening and to assist with that. But yeah, I would definitely recognize Thomas as a champion for this project.
Awesome.
And Eric, if you haven't met him, he's super friendly. So really approachable. He's always happy to talk. So yeah, definitely reach out to him.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, he's like I've already gotten some feedback from Thomas, and he's been really, really gracious. I think with some of my dumb questions. So
There's no such thing as a dumb question.
right. Um,
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, those are my questions. Thanks so much, guys.
You're welcome. And yeah, keep exploring because definitely it's a very important project and definitely there is a lot of opportunities there.
For sure. Sounds good.
So any other questions, topics you would like to discuss today? And hi, Adam.
Did we already discuss the Kep 70? I think it is adding just on the topic of the GitOps, adding and removing stages. Maybe that's one for a separate meeting.
Well, for this topic, it would be really nice to have Johannes on the call because he's
That's what I was thinking.
driving this effort.
Yeah.
Just to show the context, it's the new one. Well, it's actually not a really new one, but still. So adding removing stages with key value that you basically can modify the project without recreating it. Yesterday, there was also a question in Slack asking about how to actually re-import the projects from the repository. And all of that actually hits this area as a problematic thing because once you have the structure of stages, you cannot do anything about it unless you recreate the project. And if you recreate the project, I believe you also lose history, which is not acceptable in some cases. So basically, it would be really nice if you were able to modify it on the flight.
Yeah.
Do I capture this story correctly, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. And actually, if you scroll down a little bit, it touches on. Oh no, sorry, that's a different Kep. Never mind, ignore me. Yeah, absolutely. So this to me is when I was playing around with the GitOps operator, this is the missing piece of the puzzle. Because we can do everything else apart from stages, and this forces us into pre-deploying a shipyard file. So this is kind of for anything GitOps, this Kep would be the focus first, and then that enables the rest of it. So.
Okay, so for that, I guess all of us are on the same page that it's quite important. What is currently missing is timeline. So I'm meeting with Johannes tomorrow. I will actually try to understand how the Keptn team sees it in terms of priorities. And yeah, I think that it's something we can start preparing grant work for. Because if we can do that, let's say in the next 3 months or so, then basically there is no need to create workarounds on the GitOps project side, and we can just have a proper implementation. Because I guess pre-deploying shipyard file also has a lot of chicken and egg concerns. Because you should firstly deploy the configuration for everything, and then you should deploy shipyard. Because if you deploy everything in reverse direction, at some point there might be some validation which doesn't pass, etc. So it doesn't seem to be right in the longer term. I can ask Johannes to join maybe the next. Well, we can discuss it at the next developer meeting next week. I mean, in detail. So, and I think it would be the best venue. So basically, next Thursday, same time at this meeting. So we'll tentatively add it to the agenda. Is there anything else we could discuss for this topic? Because yeah, I'm also not very knowledgeable about what would be the timeline for that and what is the implementation complexity. But yeah, I think it's something. Yeah, go ahead.
For the GitOps, I haven't quite looked into it yet, but it probably would be nice to reference your own secrets as well instead of using the RSA encryption method. Does it? So I'm going to look into it first to see if it's actually possible with how it works, but it would be nice if you can reference an external secret as well. That doesn't have to be baked into doing it, because you're still imperative. One way or another, you sort of got to imperatively make a secret anyway, but it's still that extra step of imperative command to make all those secrets and encrypt them.
Yeah, so for external
some Helm
secrets,
chart.
we talk about just Kubernetes secrets, right? Or do you think about a completely external credentials provider?
Yeah, like for me, for example, I used to use sealed secrets, and then I moved to external secrets where you define your Kubernetes secret, but it would reference AWS Secrets Manager or HashiCorp Vault. So it's still using the Kubernetes manifest file, but it's not forcing me to do it. I want to do it my way, not your way. But I still have to see if it makes sense because I haven't looked into the code properly yet. So maybe I'll talk about it next week based on my findings. Otherwise, I might not even bring it up. But I guess it's good to bring up, like, that's the stuff I would like to see, but whether it's possible or anyone else wants it is a different story.
Yeah, because it looks like the KEP has some different implementation possibilities in it right now.
But it's just good to bring up that use case when it's sort of a new thing and not doing it, when we have 1,000 people using it. But you wouldn't break any changes anyway because you just write the Helm chart different. But I don't know. I'll bring that up next time based on my findings. I'll have a look into it a little bit more of how it actually works.
Okay. So, yeah, I'll ask Johannes for having, let's say, a deep dive discussion on Thursday. So maybe he could actually present what we currently have and what is the timeline from his point of view. I could also try inviting Thomas just to see, I don't know, what do you think? Would it be possible at this stage? Would it be reasonable at this stage to actually align with GitOps operator?
Is that for the stages thing that Adam was talking
Yes.
about? You're talking about, yeah.
I think so. I think it's going to be heavily utilized, obviously. So we don't want to get into a situation where one hasn't considered the other. I'm imagining it's yes, it'll work. I'm imagining that's the answer, but obviously just making sure that everybody's on the same page is always a good thing.
Agreed. Well, in this case, it's important to just avoid overhead work, because if you start doing massive workaround in GitOps operator just to revert it in a few months, probably the time could be spent better. So let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. So then moving on, I guess. Any other questions or topics you would like to discuss? Should we close down earlier? So if no other topics, then everyone gets 10 minutes back. And yep. So tomorrow we have another community meeting in the US time zone. And next week we have the developer meeting. So for JSOC, let's keep using Slack channels for any synchronous discussion. And if needed, we can set up additional meetings on demand. But right now, what I see, many students already submit proposal drafts. And for if you're a mentor, it's a good time to actually take a look at them, review, provide some feedback, because this is the most important part of the application phase for contributors. Okay, and thanks everyone for joining today.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
see you tomorrow.
Bye.
See ya.